Today we're talking about slivers. Where are you going? As a lot of you are probably aware, slivers are controversial in Magic. People either love them or they hate them, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of in between. And specifically, I want to talk about my Sliver Commander deck, and the view of slivers in Commander is even more controversial. I know sliver lovers who don't even like to play Sliver Commanders. I think it comes down to the fact that because slivers are so disliked by a large portion of the player base, combined with the fact that slivers can get out of hand pretty quickly. They can go from being the least perceived threat at the table to the most perceived threat at the table very quickly. A lot of Commander players know that, so the first time you drop a sliver, you become the target at the table, even though the sliver you dropped does nothing to threaten anyone yet. For those of you unfamiliar with slivers, slivers are a creature type in Magic, almost a mechanic in and of itself. Essentially, slivers feed off each other. All slivers have an ability, or slivers you control have an ability. Typically, all slivers have flying, or all slivers have death touch. They synergize with each other, and this is actually the reason why I love playing slivers, because I love playing decks that synergize, and slivers are just fun to play for me. I just really enjoy going from the least perceived threat to the most perceived threat very quickly. Slivers is one of the tribes that has a lot of options, and the one option I go for is Morophon. Yes, Morophon the Boundless. They aren't for Badger Tribal anymore. You can actually use Morophon in more tribes that are fairly well supported because Morophon is just fun. Morophon the Boundless is 7 mana for a 6/6 legendary creature shapeshifter. It has Changeling, so essentially it's all creature types all of the time. As Morophon the Boundless enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Spells of the chosen type you cast cost white, blue, black, red, green less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. Other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. So it beefs all your slivers, it essentially reduces their mana cost, and it's a sliver as well. So you get them onto the board, it gets all the effects of your other slivers. I really like Morophon, and Morophon is only one of 2 non-sliver creatures associated with this deck. The other one is Joda, Archmage Eternal. And Joda is 1 blue, red, white for a legendary creature human wizard. It's a 4/3. It has flying. You may pay white, blue, black, red, green rather than pay the mana cost for the spells that you cast. Joda makes all of your spells carry a different mana cost. You can pay this alternate cost of white, blue, black, red, green. Morophon reduces the cost of the spells you cast that are of the chosen creature type by white, blue, black, red, green, which means that when you have Joda and Morophon on the board at the same time, all of your sliver spells are free. Morophon on their face makes the first sliver, Sliver Queen, Sliver Hive Lord, Sliver Overlord, Sliver Legion, all of those are free right out of the gate for Morophon because all of them cost white, blue, black, red, green. Joda makes all of your slivers cost that. And with Morophon on the board, it's free slivers. Just slivers all day long. Those are the non-sliver spells that I run. For the sliver creatures that I run, I like to keep some things in mind when I'm creating my list of slivers, my roster of slivers. And I break it up into 3 parts. I make sure to get a good mix of basic evasion, slivers that give flying or death touch or menace. I make sure to include a good many of these in my deck so that way I can get some basic evasion very early on, like Winged Sliver or Gale Rider Sliver, which give flying, or Cloud Shredder Sliver, which give flying and haste, Striking Sliver that gives first strike, and Belligerent Sliver, which gives menace. These are the types of slivers I'm talking about. They give basic evasion to all of your slivers right off the bat, so you can start building your army quite quickly. Then I try to run a group of slivers that can get around removal and have control in them as well. A good example of that would be Dredgescape Sliver, where you can get some slivers back to do some more damage if you've had a lot of slivers removed. I also like Opaline Sliver because it gets you cards if your opponents do decide to target your creatures. So it makes your opponent think twice because they're giving you a card every time one of your slivers is targeted. I also like Harmonic Sliver, though you have to be careful with Harmonic Sliver because all slivers have, when this creature comes into play, destroy target artifact or enchantment. It is not a May ability. So if you have any artifacts or enchantments on the board and you've gone through all of your opponent's artifacts and enchantments, you're going to have to start blowing up your own every time a sliver hits the battlefield. So you need to be careful with Harmonic Sliver. And I also like to include Quick Sliver because if I can get Quick Sliver on the board, it turns all of my Slivers into a combat trick. If someone's attacking me, I can flash in Slivers to block. And the third group are the win conditions. Obviously, Sliver Hive Lord, Sliver Overlord, the first Sliver. But there are a couple that are game enders you might not realize. In particular, Fury Sliver and Magma Sliver. Both of them are pretty powerful. I've had a lot of games hinge on me getting Magma Sliver out on the board. Now, there are two Slivers that I do include that don't fall into any of these, and that is Gemhide Sliver and Manawef Sliver. These are the Slivers that give all of your Sliver the ability to tap for mana and tap for any colored mana, which is a big help in getting to the 5-color mana base that you need to get. Now, the support around the Slivers. So first off, spells. I obviously run basic removal and basic counter spells. Counter spell, Lightning Bolt, Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, Assassin's Trophy, Void Rend. I've added Void Rend to the deck. Those are my basic removal spells that I include. And remember, you're in 5 colors, so you can run whatever you want. But I also include a couple of cards that help protect my Slivers in the early game. Unbreakable Formation is a good one. That also can be a good one later in the game. That's why I like it, because it can help in the early and late game. And another, this isn't so much protection, Demonic Tutor. I run a Demonic Tutor to go and get the card I need. It does run one enchantment, that's Hadana's Climb, and that's just because Hadana's Climb works great for Slivers. It's fun. For artifacts, I basically run the Commander staples: Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, Command Sphere, Chromatic Lantern, Gilded Lotus. I do run an Aether Vial. I do have an Aether Vial, and this is the deck I run it in. I also run Cloud Key because it reduces the cost of my Slivers. I also run a Sensei's Divining Top, so that way I can smooth out my draws a little bit whenever I get the opportunity. And I run a Door of Destinies. I have considered putting in Vanquisher's Banner here as well, when I can finally get my hands on another one. And that brings us to the mana base. Now, this is a 5-color mana base, and it is a little expensive. Not as expensive as it was when I built the deck, because they hadn't reprinted the fetch lands yet. This deck essentially has 5 fetch lands. If you want to run all 10, that's great if you have them. If you're on a little bit of a budget like I was, you can run 5 fetch lands and you'll be good. Then I run all 10 shock lands. Obviously, also I run Sliver Hive because of course. And then for the rest of the mana base, it's again basic commander selection. For basic lands, I run 2 of each basic land, so that way I can get targets for the cards that I can go fetch basic lands for. And that's basically the deck. That's basically how I built it. This is actually the first commander deck I ever built solely by myself. I didn't build it out of a pre-con. I started from scratch. Yeah, I did look at some lists online to get an idea of what direction to go. I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun with it. I'll have a link in the description down below to my actual list of cards. I do recognize this deck is a little expensive. There are ways you can go budget on it, and I might do a video on doing a budget version of this deck. Tell me what you think. Do you like Slivers? Do you hate Slivers? Would you like to build a commander deck? Have you ever played against the Sliver Commander Deck? Have you ever played a Sliver Commander Deck? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Follow me on TikTok and Twitter, FDS_MTG. And yeah, click on stuff. Especially that right there. That's a really good thing to click on. Really, it is. Oh, my Slivers got dirty. Fell on the floor, they got all dirty. Magma Sliver can be an excellent game member. This show is part of the CIP network, inspiring creativity, one episode at a time.